And so what did we see for this supplier? Well, we saw someone, first of all, who was already exporting into the US. So for us already, that sort of implies compliance, or at least you would think so. They were ISO 9001 and 22000 certified. They presented us with what looked like a robust HACCP plan, okay? And so our supplier quality team said, okay, this all looks good. Let's schedule an on-site audit. What did it really look like? So the first thing that we noticed, and obviously it was quite easy, and at the beginning of the audit, there was no independent quality department. For those of you who are not in a quality setting, what that means is that there's no impartial group that's controlling or releasing finished product. So that's already a huge red flag. The next three things there that you see are all related to the control of external contaminants. Now, when you look at cleaning procedures, I think that's pretty clear. But when we talk about manufacturing processes, what this really means is you have open equipment that was either exposed to the elements or other products being manufactured in the same space, or even, as you can see from the other point there for the facility, potential fungal growth that's on ceilings, walls, floors, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? If that wasn't already concerning, the last thing that we came across was the fact that there was no traceability on raw material sourcing for this supplier. So we were not actually able to confirm where they were getting their raws, and it also led us to actually question the authenticity of the product that was being manufactured, which means either adulteration or food fraud. So just one example. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, it's a one-off. These are not typically things that happen. People usually have control over their things. Well, unfortunately not. Not long after this incident, we found another case in spirulina. So this particular supplier, and no, it's not the same one as before, in business for over 20 years, known on the market, as you can see here, also holding, those minimum requirements in terms of certifications that would give them access to the market. They've got HACCP, they've got SOP master lists, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we went ahead and we scheduled our on-site audit. A lot of the same issues here, with two notable differences. So one, there was no pest control program. So that can maybe give you already an idea in terms of the controls that were in place at the facility. On top of, other issues with hygiene and, contaminants, right? External contaminant control. What we also saw was that they didn't have any batch records. They didn't have any documentation or traceability with regards to the ponds that they were using to grow these specific spirulina spots, or whatever you want to call spores. And so there were considerable issues from a quality and regulatory perspective that told us, okay, this is not somebody that we can do business with. And it's not something that we can advocate for our own customers, right? So this brings me to another important topic, right? Because there's an element of risk management in how we manage suppliers today, right? And one of the things that I just want to talk about here, I don't want to go through each and every single one of these steps, but the idea here is that supplier quality becomes your foundation to how you're managing not just your own ingredients, but the ones that you're supplying to customers. Essentially, what you need to see here is that you're going, yes, from ingredient quality, but you're building something more important, customer trust. And that, it can seem very high level, and you're wondering, how do you do that? From a quality and regulatory perspective, what we are looking to do is to become an extension of our customers' quality team. Why? Because it allows for us to understand the complexities that they are having, and it allows for us to build up programs, due diligence, and things that our customers need to be able to support them in their own quality development. So I know I talked a little bit about, certifications not giving us the control that we need, but they still are the ticket to play, right? They still offer us the seat at the table, the access to markets. So yes, standards and certifications do matter because they are the basis, right? And when we are looking at creating supplier quality models, it is absolutely critical that any onboarding that you do follows those standards, right? However, that ticket to play all depends on execution, right? And that becomes your differentiator. So when we talk about execution, practical controls, the reason we went towards having on-site audits was to get a real understanding of what's happening on the ground. You can prepare me a really nice site summary, right? How do I know that you're actually applying those controls in your everyday operations? And that's really what makes the differentiator. Now, some people might be thinking, okay, well, there's a cost that's implicated in that. And yes, you are right. There are resources that go towards that. There is extra work that comes around that. But it's a sound investment when we know that we're preventing supply chain issues, okay? Obviously, transparency and traceability is one of the things that are, fundamental for us, making sure that we have the appropriate documents to be able to support our own customers' qualification needs. So it is something that you need to take into consideration when you're building a robust supplier quality model. Now, this is not to say that all ingredients or, suppliers carry the same level of risk. And that's why it is absolutely fundamental that you are defining what a high, medium, and low risk supplier or ingredient looks like. And that's going to change based on your end use applications. It's going to change based on your own manufacturing needs. But it is one of the critical points that you need to consider when you are building a supplier qualification program. Now, when we talk about risk-based, some of the things that you're probably going to want to consider when you're defining those different risk levels is, ingredient type and intended use, regulatory and geographic exposure. For instance, if you're sourcing from, some countries, there is a higher tendency for food fraud. So you want to keep that in mind when you're assigning those types of risks. And obviously, when we're talking about requalification, because it's not a one and done deal, right? You don't just say, okay, well, supplier X is qualified, see you later, and let it be. You need to make sure that supplier performance is part of your program and that you're building KPIs and trending that are going to allow for you to see whether you have issues in certain areas or with certain suppliers. Now, this is not a pitch for MasterControl, even though it is what we use as a digital platform, but I can't underscore the importance of moving towards a digital system. Now, I know that in some cases this requires a significant investment, so there are other platforms that do allow the visibility and traceability that you're looking to build with some of these programs. But for us, it's really shifted the way we do things, and it allows for us to have an overarching view of what's happening in our quality system, not just for suppliers, but as a whole. So you're looking at risk segmentation, risk scores, corrective actions, preventive actions. How are you managing those, right? And the advent of AI has really helped us in that analysis, decreasing the amount of actual man hours that we need to invest in doing this, but giving us the same results. The idea here is really to focus your oversight, to give you that in-depth, knowledge that you need to address the gaps that you identify. I just want to give you a really quick overview of what we've done at Actylis in the last 3 years, and it'll just give you an example of the 5 steps that we've, implemented and integrated into our systems from beginning to end of our processes. So the first one, obviously, you can see, and I talked about this before, supplier qualification and onboarding is the foundation of everything that we do because it's going to dictate not just the quality of our finished goods that we're, manufacturing in our manufacturing sites, but also the ones that we are providing through our supply and sourcing, okay? I mentioned before, we have on-site audits for all of our pharma and nutritional applications because these are ingestible products, they carry a higher degree of risk, and for us, it just makes sense. Okay? Risk-based supplier segmentation. So this kind of ties back to what I was talking about before when you define what your risk factors are. We look at that through product categories, through product segments, and through regional supplier location, obviously. And performance is something that we have built into our supplier quality model. You can see that actually for step 3, we have annual supplier scorecards, our AI analytics, in MasterControl allow for us to properly categorize risk. And we are assessing on a yearly basis, not just from a quality perspective, how did a supplier do? Delivery, quality of product, responsiveness. Did they give us corrective actions when we had issues? Did they support us in resolving technical issues with customers? This all factors in to your risk factor and your partnerships. Continuous improvement is also something that we've invested heavily in, okay? And this is not just within our own four walls. It's something that we really promote with our suppliers. And to be honest, we don't call them really suppliers. They're our partners. So we help our own partners elevate their quality systems, elevate their processes, and our auditors are actually also there to support them in preparing CAPAs and implementing the solutions that are not just going to benefit them, but ultimately us and our end customers. Last and certainly, but not least, is the voice of the customer. When I talked about, becoming an extension of your customer's quality team, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Supporting our customers in evolving regulatory and quality landscapes, there's always changes happening. Customers need that support and they value that in a partner. So finally, I guess my closing slide here is really, why is quality your competitive advantage? Okay, your robust systems, building things that work for you and that provide you not just with that compliance and that ticket to play, but show your customers that you are reliable and that you're there to support them, is going to be your strategic enabler for growth. So with that, I really want to thank you for attending my presentation today, and I'll take any questions if you have any.